Hi, welcome back to Internet Client Engineering. In this video, we're going to look at some aspects about the audience and to talk a little bit about starting points that we might encounter when we are asked to build a website. What's an audience? Well, it's defined as the group of users who would use the website that you are building. And this group of users typically have the same type of information or are after the same type of information and have similar navigation patterns. And this audience in general might be diffused or fuzzy, right? So it might be very unclear who this audience is, or it might be very clear depending on the circumstances. So there are three possibilities listed here. We might have a crisp and accessible audience. So we not only know the members of the audience, but we can also directly engage them. We can invite them in to talk to them in a workshop, for instance, or interview them directly. We might also have a fuzzy and non-accessible audience, and this refers to an audience where we are not so clear who they are, and they are also not accessible, so we can't interview them directly. So the indirect methods that we talked about previously would be useful here. And then there are the undefined or unknown audience, right? And in this case, the audience could be anybody, right? So like a general website that we are building, it could be anybody. So it's hard to get information about the users. When developing a website, there are three possibilities. Number one is that no previous website exists, so you're developing the website from scratch. The second possibility is something's already there. There's already an old website, for instance, and your task or your team's task might be to rebuild that website, to refresh it, perhaps to build a new website that wraps around the previous website, to refresh it. And the third category is that there's not only one existing website, but there's several. And your task might be to build a website that mediates between all those. In other words, you're trying to build a website that would include all the other websites, integrate all the other websites, that is. Now, if we mix the audience categories and system categories, there are a number of possibilities. So we might have a crisp, accessible audience, for instance, a university website, so we know who the users are, they are clearly defined. And then, in this case, system type A means we start from scratch. But because we are able to access the users, we can get information about users and based on that, create the website and represent the website using some object model, right? Be it the static aspects or the dynamic interactive aspects. Another case here is where we have a mixed audience category 1. In other words, we know who the users are, they are directly accessible, and we have system type B, and the objective is to build a new website that wraps around, sometimes called a wrapper or a layer, around an existing website. Here's another case where, again, we do know who the audience is, and there are also several websites already existing. So the purpose of this is to build a mediator website. The purpose of your team is to build a mediator website. Now, suppose the audience category is fuzzy, so we don't really know who they are, but through the indirect methods, as we discussed in a previous video, we can get some information about the users, about the audience. Based on that, we develop the website, right? So whatever that we start off with either have nothing to start with, the system type A. B, we have an existing website to start with, or C, we have more than one existing website to start with. In all these three categories, we might employ some strategies to get some information about users, even when we don't have direct access to them. So we use indirect methods, as I mentioned. So for instance, we might be able to conduct a survey, or we might be able to try and develop a prototype based on the requirements and try and progressively evolve it. So initially we don't know who the users are, we deploy the system, and then we get some feedback from users as the users come on board and they use the prototype, and then we modify and come out with a new version of the prototype and then evolve the system as we go. So in this case, where we have audience category tree, we don't know who the audience is, and system type B or C, in which case we do have some information that we can start with. So B means there's an existing website. C means there's more than one existing websites that we can start with. So even though it is audience category tree, in which case we don't know who the users are and we don't have access to them, we can still get some information from the previous website. So for instance, we look at the web logs to find out what kind of patterns of behavior, what kind of information has been most useful, or which have been accessed most frequently in the existing websites. And then that could be used to inform how we restructure or build the new version of the website. There's one more case which we haven't discussed, and that is if we don't have any existing website and we don't know who the audience is. Well, we just have to design a website based on perhaps business function, for instance. Okay, so that's it for this video.